Hello, everyone. My name is Bonnie, and about 3 years ago, I fell in love with a mental hospital patient. Most of my life, my mom has worked in a mental hospital as a therapist. I'd always see that her job was draining, but she never wanted to talk about it, at least with me. Maybe she thought I was too young to know. But then, when I was about 15 or 16, we moved closer to the hospital, and our whole lives changed. My mom was occupied and had to work overtime, so I started walking her to work after school. The only thing she could say was that she had a patient that needed a lot of time, and that he was a unique case. But one of those days was pretty special. I was having a really hard time at my new school. My classmates were brutal. They were the kind of people that would annihilate you if you didn't have the newest iPhone or didn't wear a jumper with a Supreme logo on it. I wasn't used to this sort of competitiveness, and I was cast out right away. So after school, I made my mom PB&J sandwiches and was walking to the hospital when midway, some guy stopped me. "Come with me," the guy said in a very low-pitched voice, nearly whispering. "Why would I do that?" I laughed, because the whole situation sounded ridiculous. "What do you even mean, why? You don't really belong anywhere either, do you?" Even though the guy sounded batshit crazy, he was speaking the truth, and I had a game on attitude towards everything, so I followed him. We had reached a small park when I heard shouting everywhere far behind us. He took my hand and pushed me into a bush. "Is someone searching for you? Are you planning on killing me?" I whispered, but he just shook his head and, after about a minute of hiding, kept walking towards somewhere. We went into a dark alley that was full of big trash bins. That's when I started thinking that I was gonna die. Then and there. He opened the trash bins at the end of the alley and took out different clothes. Colorful ones. "Be on the lookout," he said, all paranoid, as if someone was following him. I turned around thinking, is this a kidnapping or a cry for help? My heart was beating very fast. This wasn't the adventure I thought it would be. As I turned around, I saw him wearing really strange clothes, as if he'd time traveled from the 80s. "So, did you decide?" he asked me. "Decide what?" At this point, I was practically shouting, "Are you coming with me or not?" He walked out of the alley, and at this point, I had no idea what to expect. I heard a short beep, and I understood that he unlocked a car that was standing nearby. Was it even his car? We hopped in, he started driving, and finally introduced himself. "I'm Felix, by the way." We drove for about an hour and stopped near a meadow. We walked straight into the middle of it, and he laid down, saying, "This is it." We've arrived. Together, we laid in the meadow. A gust of wind slightly kissing our cheeks, and he started talking. Felix said that he'd never felt like he belonged somewhere. At least, he didn't belong with people. He always felt like they were watching him, judging him. I felt like there was some serious paranoia in his voice, but I couldn't help but agree. We came back to the city about 2 hours later, and when I reached home, my mom was already in panic mode. I had never seen her so scared. "What the hell did you think you were doing? I couldn't find you anywhere. You didn't answer any of my calls." I didn't understand where this was coming from. She was a pretty liberal parent. Then she started mumbling. "There was this patient, my patient, in the hospital. There's something deeply wrong with him. And he got out again." I was so scared. As she was talking, I felt shivers down my spine. Could it be Felix? We met pretty close to the hospital. Is he really tall with curly hair? I asked, and I saw my mom's face turning white. Oh my God, yes, she answered. I thought for a minute and decided to lie, saying that I only saw him walking somewhere close to my school and thought he looked strange. For some unknown reason, I felt like I had to protect him until my mom dropped a little piece of information that got me panicky. I think he killed his little brother. I thought I was gonna vomit. My gut wasn't lying to me. I was in danger. But for some reason, now I wanted to ask him about it. Talk to him. Interrogate him. So the next day, as I went to my mom's work to bring her lunch, I decided to search for him. I walked around the hospital until I saw a door open and him sitting on the bed, silent. I walked in and closed the door. Felix looked startled, but I didn't want to let him into my head. Did you kill your brother? I asked. My tone was cold as ice. Well, everyone seems to think I did. His answer only enraged me. That's not what I asked. I was close to shouting. I think the fact that I didn't care what others thought, I wanted to hear the truth, actually opened him up because his feelings poured out of him. No, I didn't. He started talking slowly, explaining that at the time when it happened, he was about 6 years old, and he had to babysit his little brother, who was a couple years younger. He was playing around, and after about a half an hour, he lost his brother and couldn't find him anywhere. His parents came back and found his brother drowned in a pond. From that point on, even his parents treated him as a killer, even though it was an accident, even though he felt the biggest burden of guilt humanly possible. Kept talking, but I got close to him and hugged him. It was a pure moment of compassion and friendship. I'd probably be insane if that happened to me too. But then my mom burst into the room, her face colored with disgust. She took my hand and dragged me out of there. I think that was the first real fight that I've ever had with my mom. Now, I see that she probably just felt like she needed to protect me. But from my point of view, she lacked compassion and understanding. He wasn't a bad person. He was a young man who lost his brother. We screamed and screamed at each other until our voices started cracking. I wasn't allowed to visit her anymore. But I still kept showing up near the hospital every day, just close enough to see if he managed to escape some way or another. One of those days, I saw him hopping that enormous fence. I don't think anyone had ever been so happy to see me before. We drove to the meadow again, to the land where he spent his childhood, and this tragedy happened. Maybe I was going insane too, but I understood him. Not only that, I fell in love with him. But I knew that the only way for me to be with him was to convince Mom that he wasn't dangerous. I doubted that he was even insane. So, cue the biggest standoff anyone has ever seen. That evening, I asked him to come to my house before he went back to the hospital. As we entered my home and my mom saw him, she literally grabbed a knife and was ready to call the police. "Give us 5 minutes, Mom, please," I begged her. So my dear Felix had to pour his heart out to a strange woman while she was ready to call the cops on him. He was nearly finishing when I saw her putting the knife down and calming down. She just said, "I lost my little sister too. I never knew I had an aunt. But it turns out she died before I was even born." We agreed that he would go back to the hospital and she would make sure that this time he would be treated as a human being. It's strange to me how we judge people for hearsay, how easier it all could have been if they hadn't treated him as a monster in the first place. After about a year, the doctors decided that he was actually in a pretty good mental place and he was managing to cope with his paranoia and guilt. When he got out, we drove to the meadow for the last time as he put funeral flowers near the pond. We said goodbye to our past. Felix and I still feel different from everybody else. Sometimes we feel excluded or cast away, but at least we belong somewhere. We belong to each other. And we learn that there is a very thin line between being insane and being human.
Did you like this story? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Dear Diary as we post new stories every week.